Hey, what's going on? Well, as you can see, progress on Outrun 2 continues. Last video, I brought it home. This video, I'm going to get you caught up on what I got done so far, and maybe we're going to even check a few more things off that list. All right, let's check it out. Okay, so let's start with the piece that was actually missing from the cabinet. That was the coin door, or the complete coin door assembly. All I had was a bucket and just a wiring harness and a piece of plywood over the front. It's kind of sad. I did some research and I actually found a coin door, complete coin door assembly from another, not just a Sega cabinet, but a Sega Chihiro cabinet. This is Ghost Squad, so all of the wiring connectors should be the same, making this a plug-and-play installation. Okay, so we're on the front of the cabinet, about to install the coin door mechanism into this, void that had no coin door mechanism. And I talked about, in the overview of the cabinet, I was going to take all of these multi-taps off. Get rid of these multi-taps. They're just not a good wiring solution, really. I mean, they'll get you by in a pinch, but they really don't, they're not the best, because basically you can see this is, without the plastic coating, this is what you get going on. It's a blade that just damn near cuts the wire, depending on if you have the right size or not. And so the idea is that it taps into the copper underneath the shielding. So here's what you do. Here's what I do. So if you want to remove these, we want to be methodical. We want to take our time. There is a little release here on the back side. Take a very small screwdriver. And remember, we're trying to be gentle. We don't want to twist the whole connector too much. And then when you do that, it opens up that. Now, like I said, depending on if you have the right wire gauge or the right tap for the right wire gauge, the wire could just come out, or you could actually, that wasn't too bad. On some of these, if you use the wrong one, it'll actually cut the wire or be stuck on like this one. So this is what I do. I take some heavy duty or heavier duty end cutters. I'm going to go on the back side here, because you've got the fork on this side, right? You can see that you got the split there. You don't have a split where I'm about to cut. You cut that. There you go. See, when you do that, we just split it, get rid of it, and now you're left with this. You've got these gaps. One thing I like to use, instead of just electrical tape, which is a fine solution, liquid electrical tape. This comes in different finishes. This is usually black is the most common. This is clear. I did that. I'm going to use that so that I can retain the wire colors, which is really important on arcades in troubleshooting. And the new rubber flooring with the diamond plate checkered pattern is installed on the cabinet and on the kick panel, or the lower panel on the actual seat pedestal. So that looks really good. All the trim pieces are painted. They're going to be assembled a little bit later. Last piece is this large piece that sits right on top. And this is here. We're going to do some contact cement just like we did on the other pieces. Set that in place, and then we'll trim out the holes for the seat and then bolt the seat back onto its pedestal. We're also going to add some of this foam, this closed cell foam, to the back and the bottom to kind of make it a little bit more comfortable. So making the mount for your Unico is not going to be super straightforward. It is going to be something you're going to have a little bit of skill with as far as woodworking. Depending on the medium, the material you actually decide to go with, you could go with a thick sheet of like Lexan or plastic or whatever, but the cheapest stuff is going to be wood. MDF is what I tend to go with. One thing to be mindful of is this stuff will absorb moisture, any kind of moisture, water, whatever. So after I fabricate this piece completely, I'm going to give it a coat of shellac just to kind of seal it. And now I'm at this point here where it's time to figure out where to actually mount the monitor. And this is where, if your cabinet is blown apart like mine was, you're going to want to get it together at least in this level. So your control panel should be in place to get the proper placement of the bezel, which is what is really going to determine the placement of the Unico monitor. All we're going to do here is we're going to take this and I'm going to trace out the exposed area. This isn't going to be the hole that you cut. This is just the area that you're going to use as a reference when you take this all down and take your Unico monitor and actually take the measurements for the monitor. You want it to be centered up in this space here. But moving on to the pedal assembly. This is the one that I thought had a bad switch. Turns out that's actually not the case. What it was missing was the engagement with the pedal. So you see this piece here, this plastic piece, has teeth in it, and those teeth match the grooves in the potentiometer. They have to be in mesh so that as this moves back and forth, the potentiometer moves. Problem is, you can see, now I've got it loose, but when it was tight, it was still missing. So it was stuck. So the potentiometer rotated all the way back, and it just was at full throttle, and that's it. So it wasn't really good. That's not what you want. So what I had to do is go to Sega Outrun and buy some of these plastic pieces here. I got 3 here. They're going to replace this assembly. And because Sega Outrun does not let you order anything less than $50, I decided to go ahead and get everything, multiples of everything. Here's the, this is the actual gear that connects to the brake assembly, goes here. That is in constant mesh with that. And there's another piece over here, this guy. So I got just a bunch of plastic gears. I don't necessarily need them, but this is the same, if you remember, this is the same pedal assembly that's in my Crazy Taxi, so I may need these parts later on for that. Okay, kids, so we have an opportunity to get a little bit creative here. So we have the AC adapter that runs the Unico LCD panel. Okay, so we have that. We know we got to do something with that. Most monitors will have some kind of a 110 signal going up to it from the main harness. This is a harness, a mini harness, a breakout board, whatever you want to call it. This is what used to be plugged into the standard monitor. What we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the video signal, and we're just going to go with the power. This is going to be plus, minus, and then your ground, obviously, there. We're going to go ahead and clip this, and we're going to use one of these little flush mount or wall mount power strips. It's just got 2 plugs, and it also has 2 USB connections, just in case I want to do something like maybe add a light inside the cabinet, which is really useful if you're working on it. So I cut the end off. We're going to go ahead and cut this, separate this from this harness. The good thing about this, though, is this is going to provide a solution to plug into the stock main harness, and I don't have to mess that up in any way. So yes, we are using 3/4 inch plywood for back of the cabinet, and if you're going to do this, make sure you get sanded plywood because it has a little bit smoother finish. This, you see the knots, but you can't really feel these knots. And on the other side, this side that's going to face out, it has none of that. And you get the sanded stuff, and then you round over the corners with a little bit of sandpaper, and then when you paint this, it'll be pretty smooth. Still waiting on a few last minute parts. Yes, it is incredibly hot here in the Cincinnati area. Very, very hot, in the 90s every day. Flipped over the cabinet and found that the wheels on the bottom were actually bad. Not so much on the seat portion, but on the cabinet itself. So we got it laid down. We did get the paint all done on the lower half, the sides. It's a really good match, pretty good match, really close. But if I take it in the, I'm telling you what, if I take it in the arcade and it don't look right, I'm gonna have to take it out and repaint the top. But I think for now, it's gonna be fine. So I can get some new artwork. Okay, so basically the last piece of the puzzle for the dash, besides some decals and stickers and stuff I got coming that I can put on some other time, is the buttons. The start and view change buttons. I know what you're saying, Fox, you already had those. What was wrong with them? Did they not work? No, they work fine. They work fine, there's nothing wrong with them. But there's something wrong with me because, see, I have crippling OCD. So what I wanted to do was add some labels to this section here because it's so just bland, and just look at the light. Take the light. See, look, there's just nothing here. Nothing here. Steering wheel's here. I got some stickers coming, some gauge stickers. I'm gonna put those on, but like I said, I can put those on later. But right here is a dead space of nothingness. And you could kind of see where there's an outline that they had something here. But I can't find anything online, so what I wanted to do was just do a simple start and view change label, sticker. But nobody had what I wanted. I tried to get some of the stock skinny ones and they didn't look right. So of course I did what all people with crippling OCD do, is I fixated on something that was pointless and didn't matter. You see, these buttons already have the labels on them. They say start, they say view change. So if I had that next to a label that also said start and view change, to me, it would just bother me. So I did the rational thing. I got a completely different set from the exact same cab running a different game, and they do not have these start and view change labels on them. So these will be just standard buttons, and the label will be off to the side. Okay, so let's talk about flat screen or LCD installation techniques. A lot of people kind of go wrong whenever they decide they want to swap out their CRT for some kind of LCD. Back in the day, it was just like a regular TV, like a 27-inch. I don't know, you can actually get a 32-inch in here. So they would go to Walmart and they'd get a TV, and then they would just take everything out. They take the mounts out, they take out the bezel and everything, and then they would just take a piece of plywood, and mount the TV to the plywood, and put it right up against the glass, if they even kept the glass. And that just kind of ruins, in my way, it ruins some of the look of the arcade. The way I do it is I try to mount the LCD about in the same place that the monitor was. And the only thing you lose is that roundness of the CRT.
Now, it's not always going to be possible to purchase everything missing from your cabinet, and sometimes it's just cheaper to make it. My cabinet was missing the spacer that goes between the bolt and the steering wheel that tightens it up on the steering shaft. So I'm just going to cut another one out of a piece of copper pipe that I got from my local hardware store. Now, it took me a couple tries to get the depth just right, but luckily copper pipe is cheap. But once I got it figured out, it really tightened up and removed all the wobble and slop that was in my steering wheel, and it made for a better gameplay experience.
You know, for a while there, things are going so well. So undoubtedly you have seen footage of the cabinet being cleaned up and put together and slightly modified, and it's in the arcade now. What you didn't see was some gameplay footage. I think I played probably 3 or 4 different times, running different tracks, having a great time, love the game, it's super fun and awesome. Until it wasn't. What happened was I tried to start it up. This is probably the 5th or 6th time. I think I was going to begin to shoot some footage for this video, and it failed because it couldn't communicate with the GD-ROM. So the GD-ROM is basically the disk drive that the Chihiro board uses to run the game. It's just a disk. This is the same sort of ROM the sort of drive that the Dreamcast uses. So it couldn't communicate with this. I wasn't sure what the problem was, and it was kind of a shame because I knew that if I kept the disk drive, this GD-ROM, that I could eventually just buy more games, the discs, and swap them in, and everything would have been fine as long as I can get that security dongle, this little chip right here, that goes with the game itself. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? So I looked at getting another one, a replacement. So you're looking at about 120 bucks, maybe $100 for a replacement, the complete drive, the shell, and everything. Or you could go super cheap, like I did, and you can get the guts or the internals of this drive for about 45 bucks, which is what I did. I thought, what could possibly go wrong? Well, of course, that didn't do it. But before I could try that, before I could go through that process and then say, well, okay, let's try something else. While I was waiting for the guts of this drive to show up, this came up for auction on eBay. And this is a replacement Chihiro board running Outrun 2 SP, but not the disc version, but the actual, it's a separate board, a game board built into the actual machine, the device itself. No additional disc needed. Still need the security chip, the security dongle, but the game is actually on a separate board inside the housing. So that was great. That was awesome. That was 299 bucks, so 300 bucks for that. So I ordered that, waiting for this part to show up. This part shows up, it's 45 bucks, 50 bucks, it doesn't work. Crap, okay, that sucks. But let me go ahead and wait for the super expensive version. And it's going to have the better version of the game, and it's going to have lower, shorter run time, or load times and all that. So it's a better way to go, right? This part here is the game itself. So this takes the place of the disk drive, the GD-ROM. So that's where that is. And the security chip is right inside there. The little security dongle for that specific game is already plugged in, ready to go. So now it is time to really take the best of these two boards. I'm not going to really get rid of anything. I'm going to go ahead and keep the GD-ROM, even though I know the ROM is faulted and failed. But the disc is still in here, so I'm going to keep the original Outrun 2 disc in there, and maybe in the future buy a separate GD-ROM in case I wanted to maybe swap over to the CD or the GD-ROM version instead of the solid state version. We're going to clean this up. We're going to put this together. Like I said, we're going to take the best parts from both and combine the best looking. Definitely starting with this cover is rough on the one that they sent me, so I'm going to probably steal the cover off my board because that looks much better. And before we stack these boards together, so we'll do the battery swap, put that on, put it all back together, don't put it in the cabinet. Cross our fingers that this $300 actually fixes the cabinet. Okay, so we are definitely in the home stretch. This thing is coming together, and as you can see, for the most part, the dash is assembled. All the hardware has been painted, and I've added a couple custom touches because, like I pointed out in the beginning of the video, the dash is very plain and black and boring, and so I had to do a few things to kind of spice it up. So remember, we swapped out these buttons that were labeled to buttons that were not labeled so that I could add another label, something to kind of break up the monotony of the black. Also, I wanted to add some gauge decals because these were just nothing. So I actually just went online and grabbed a couple images of stock gauges out of a Ferrari 430 and cut those out, put those in place. And now we're going to do something else. We're not just going to slap on the steering wheel, which we could, and I've actually done some, for the purposes of, checking everything out. I did throw this on and test and everything works properly. But you're going to notice what we got going on here is just a metal shaft sticking out, and it doesn't even really fill up the entire opening of the plastic, dash, and it just kind of looks bland and plain. The other ones in my collection do a better job, I think, of hiding the steering shaft. We're going to do something a little bit custom here because I can't just let this go. I've done all this other stuff. Why not just do one more thing? So what I did do, I went to Amazon.com and found this custom CV joint. It's a CV boot, actually. Comes with this grease and the fasteners, but here's a part I'm really after. It's the actual boot itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to fit this on the shaft, which measures at 3/4 of an inch, and all we have to worry about is the distance itself. So I'm going to mock up the steering wheel. Yeah, we definitely want to cut some of this off. I'm probably going to go about right there. So I'll take this back off. We'll cut along that ring there. That should be good. We'll put the whole thing back together.
So this has definitely been probably my favorite arcade cabinet to build because I got it done quicker than the other two, and it is a blast to play. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be straight up, this is not a game that I played in high school. This came out much later, after I was out of high school. I was a dad with the wife and bills and all that stuff, so I didn't get to spend a ton of time in the arcades. But when I did play this from time to time, I remember having a lot of fun with it. And then more recently, playing this in the arcades with some of my new arcade buddies, it just sort of drove the point home that this is one of those cabinets I had to have in my very small collection. It sort of combines the old school feel of those arcade games from back in the day with some of those new play mechanics. With the drift is really fine-tuned. It's really thought out in this cabinet. I feel like I have some sort of control when the car is drifting, bringing it back and forth. So the force feedback is definitely there, the shifting, the sound, and then if you can find the SP version of the game, you absolutely need to get it. It adds so much stuff. It adds being able to choose different cars, different tracks, switching between the original version of the game and the new version of the game. There's more music, there's different colors. It really just sort of takes that original game and just blows it up with just as many features as you can possibly imagine. But yeah, so this is definitely something I'm glad I got in my in the arcade, in the collection. It will stay here for probably forever. The monitor, the Unico monitor, looks pretty good, but it is having some issues with bright white colors. It tends to sort of wash out. There is a new board that they're sending out to some of the original adopters of these original Unico monitors. I can't wait to swap that in and see if that helps out with some of that washout. But beyond that, the game sounds good, but there are a few improvements that I'm going to make, but you're going to have to wait for a different video to see what I do there. Anyway, thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the channel, everybody. Remember, if you have any questions about this cabinet or anything pertaining to the build, let me know down in the comments section below. Y'all have a blessed day. I'll see all of you next time.